Cool Hand Podcast, something you got to deal with. Welcome back to the show. I am your host. My name is Q. We have a special guest in the building, someone who recently completed a very impressive 30-day challenge. Um, guest, can you please introduce yourself?
What's up, y'all? My name is Benji. I go by Groovy. Yeah, I just finished the Project 30 challenge this past December, so it's been nuts. It's something that I've been seeing a lot of content creators do, and they've really helped them grow their skills and just their audience or whatever it is. I was just curious and was like, all right, I might as well try it because I've done different challenges before. Like I've done. Oops, sorry. Go ahead. Bro.
Oh no! Do your thing. Keep going.
Yeah, no, I've done like I've tried Inktober like 3 or 4 times, where you draw every day off a prompt or something like that. I'll do it and then I'll just get into it too much, try to do the most, and then I'm like, all right, I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. Try to keep it up. So this time around is interesting.
Got you. Okay, because when I saw another sister do like a 30-day challenge, and it was just like she wanted to just do content every day, post for 30 days straight. And I think that is difficult for one. So you've done some in the past. What was this recent one like?
This one was interesting because I'm an all or nothing kind of guy. So I think that because of social media, you never know which one of your posts or something's going to pop off. So you're like, okay, I got to put my best foot forward every time. But this one was more of a level of teaching me to have more longevity rather than like in the moment type of content creation. Cause I think that's always been my issue is like, okay, you have to do it all the time. Like, but you can't sprint 24/7 or you're going to get tired or end up hurting yourself. So this one was more of like all right, you got to learn, you got to figure out how are you going to make sure this is something you want to do in the long run rather than just like a spare of the moment kind of thing. So it was interesting, but just to see how much like support that came out of this was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, and the thing is about your content, this was not lazy content. This was well thought out, well planned out stuff. Like the quality of your videos every day, I'm like, geez, like how long is this taking? And then there would be like the longer version on YouTube. This wasn't just like 30 days of reels. This was like 30 days of minutes long content.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I got myself, or I played myself in this time. Cause like reels, it was easy. Cause like I could shoot and edit a reel probably like an hour or two, be fine. But like YouTube videos, the way how I approach them is they're more long. You got to get more thought out. And in the beginning, I was able to do it because I had time on my hands. But when I was kind of back home in my own space, I think at that point I was just fried. And whenever things got a little difficult for me, I was like, okay, you resort back to what do you know? So that's how being consistent on the 30-day reels was easier than being consistent with my YouTube videos, because the YouTube videos are longer. I'm like, all right, I don't know if I got this type of time. And like, so I'm working on a video to kind of like addressing that issue as well. Like, okay, this is something where I had to be modest. You got to focus on one platform and not 2 or 3. Cause I was posting on Instagram, TikTok, and trying to post on Instagram or on YouTube. So it's like, all right, Jeez. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's a lot. And you can find these videos on Instagram. Groovy Foo Studios also have his YouTube up here on my second screen here, Groovy Foo Studios, and we'll also have it on the screen for everybody to go check these things out. So let's just take it back a little bit. Let's dial back and talk about your roots. Where are you from? Where are you at?
Oh man, I'm a military kid, so like having a home is such a difficult situation to kind of explain to people, because it's like, well, I grew up in Colorado Springs. That's where my dad was stationed, but I was born in Italy. Then I lived in Germany before we came stateside. So it's like home has always just been wherever my feet are at, that's home, I guess. But I've always been kind of a nomadic kind of person. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Now you have an interesting living situation as well. So, where do you live right now? What state, and what is your home situation like?
So I live in Kansas right now, Emporia, Kansas. It's like an hour and a half from Kansas City. I just moved here about a year ago. I used to live in Manhattan, Kansas. That's where I went to college at. And I live in an RV. So kind of how that came about. Like most people during the pandemic, I got into like the van life kind of stuff, started watching that. I was like, oh man, that'd be kind of dope. And a situation worked out where a family friend, they had an RV they were just trying to get rid of. And I just went home and talked to her about it. And I was like, all right, I'm trying to move out. I'm moving to a different town. And I was like, well, I need a place to live, a place to park it. So I had a new family down here. It worked out that there was a construction project happening down here. We were building a Kingdom Mall, and they ended up putting a campsite in on their farmland. And so like, okay, the project was wrapping up, and they were like, okay, we're going to keep the campsite. And I was like, oh, well, I need a place to park this RV. So I asked them about it. Like, yeah, you could bring it. So like, all right, so I guess we're doing this. So yeah, I live in a 33 foot RV mobile home. Mm-hmm. So I've been here for about a year now.
So you're the first a year. Okay, so you're the first person I know to actively live in an RV. I feel like I've known like, you know, older couples who used to live in like a similar situation like back in the day, but that's pretty neat. So I want to focus on this for a little bit because this interests me. So what is RV life like?
It's interesting, like, because RVs are different because it all depends on the size you have. So this one, I can actually get in and drive it like a bus. So it's actually pretty nice. I've done that a few times where I'll drive it into town and get some stuff or whatever. But honestly, for a single person, it's great because it's like enough, kind of like a studio apartment kind of vibe, but it's all one section. So it's pretty cool. Mine isn't like a cramped one. So I have like back there, it's like a separate shower, separate bathroom, toilet. So it's like, it's enough space for me to where it's great for one person. It's like a queen size bed back there, a bunch of storage. I do struggle with like, because like where I'm going like creatively in my career, I'm struggling with like a studio space. So that's kind of been the difficult part, but overall RV living is super easy. It's not easy, but it's comfortable when you figure out how you like to live.
Yeah. Gotcha. What was that adjustment like from whether you're living in an apartment or house beforehand? What was the adjustment period like?
Okay, so for context, I'll say, so I used to live with a roommate, and we had technically a 5-bedroom, 2 full bathroom house. And so I had a room, he had a room, he had an office, I had an office, and so I had like a whole studio downstairs in the basement. And so that adjustment was like, all right, well, the conveniences of a home is having a full kitchen, being able to like go like move around in a bathroom and just like having space. So that was an adjustment to cutting down what I needed. And I got rid of a lot of stuff. I still have stuff back at the old place that I need to get rid of. But that was one thing, just whittling everything down, but also like the conveniences of a house. Like my first night in the RV, I figured like, okay, cool, I need to fill up this tank of water. I turned it on, went to sleep, woke up the next day, because I moved in the wintertime, mind you. That was stupid. Didn't even know that. I was not prepared. So I left the water running overnight. I come outside, the whole yard where this RV is parked at, it's frozen. I'm like, where did all this water come from? I walk around, I was like, oh snap, I left the water thing going. So that was one thing that I didn't think of. Like, well, RVs don't have like an automatic shutoff valve like a house would. So I'm like, oh, that was a learning curve. And then because of that, I cracked my hot water tank. So I didn't know like why I didn't have hot water. So I was taking cold showers for a few weeks, but I was like, you know, I guess this is part of how I gotta live. And then figuring out the whole propane situation, because it's like you don't got like a gas line running straight into this thing. So that was interesting, but at the same time, I figured out get a gym membership because, you know, I can get a hot shower, do that. And then like going over friends' houses if I need to like cook somewhere or something like that. But I found ways to get some space heaters. You just kind of figure it out along the way. But this time around, it's a lot easier. I'm way more prepared.
Yeah, that is pretty neat. Pretty neat. So let me just ask this because you were born in another country to begin with. This just popped into my head. Did you have to go through like some sort of like citizenship thing being born in Europe?
Yeah. So what kind of worked out with the military, how that works is you get two birth certificates. And because my dad's American and my mom, she got her citizenship when she was like in her late teens, because her and her family immigrated from Haiti. There's something that happens where you get two birth certificates until you're the age of 18, and then you have to pick. You decide which country you want to get your passport with or whatever. So I really didn't understand that. So my parents just picked an American passport, which was, I feel bad. That was like a bad choice. But yeah, so as a kid, I really didn't understand like all that, but I always just identified as like Italian American, because like most people say, oh, if you're born in this America, you're technically American. So I'm like, shoot, I was born in Italy, so technically I'm Italian, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Man, you're an interesting person, man. You got there's a lot of depth behind you. Okay, so where did you spend most of your childhood?
Most of my childhood, yeah, I was mostly in Colorado Springs. That's like where, yeah, most of my life was all there. Teen years or development years there until I moved out to Kansas for college. But I've been almost out in Kansas as long as I've lived in Colorado, so it's starting to change.
Gotcha. And okay, so what was life like growing up in Colorado Springs, and what were you doing creatively? How did the art come around?
So art was always like a back burner for me, because growing up, it was all about sports. Like me and my friends, we played during recess, like summer camps, played on teams together. So my main focus was playing sports. Like I wanted to go to college to play football. Well, before that, I had hoop dreams before I stopped growing. So I was always like the tallest kid till like 5th, 6th grade. Then everybody else starts becoming like 6'1", 6'2". I'm like, oh, there goes that. So, yeah, I started focusing on football. But the funny thing is, during summer camps, when the gyms were closed for like a short period of time, my friends would go play like video games and stuff like that. I'm sneaking off to like the 4-H club and go learning different creative things. So I learned cake decorating, sewing, started drawing more, because in that era, like, because I was born in 94, so like early 2000s, everybody's learning how to draw like Dragon Ball Z characters, anime, and all that stuff. So
yeah,
me and my friends, we do that, and that's kind of where I started like picking up art. But most of the time, I just used to steal my older brother's drawing notebook, and I just copy his drawings all the time. So my older brother, he's a web developer for Nike right now, so all my art influence comes from him. Because that's the sweatshirt. He did this when he was in college. This is his brand. So
wow.
I just always copied my older brother. Like art just comes from him. Our dad is an artist, but he didn't really do much of that when we were kids. But my brother is where it all came from. So every time I'm sitting in class drawing and stuff like that. But when did I start taking art serious? Was probably was when my brother was selling clothes. Because like I would work with designs with him, so I'm selling T-shirts and stuff out the back of my car, and we're always like planning out like, okay, what designs we want to do next, and so that's kind of where it all started for me. But it wasn't until I went to college, I ended up going to school for kinesiology and nutrition and kinesiology. Wanted to be a private sports trainer. But then I ended up got caught up in partying and all that, and I ended up failing out of school. So my counselor was like, "Yeah, bro, that was like one of those existential crises, because it was like I wasn't trying to go back to school, I wasn't trying to go back home. I'm like, all right, what can I do?" So I talked to my counselor, and she was like, "I missed my interviews for our department," but she was like, "Well, you can go through the art department and kind of work your way through that." I was like, "All right, cool, whatever." So I talked to my counselor for the art department, started taking art classes, or she enrolled me in some. And then during that time, when I got to start taking art studio classes, all my classmates that were art majors, they were just like, this isn't fair. You're not even an art student, but your stuff is good. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I just draw or whatever. It's nothing crazy. And so after hearing those for a while, I started realizing like, okay, there might be something here. So what's cool about at K-State, their art department, is they have this job board. So they'll send out emails whenever like someone's looking for an artist to do something. So I just started applying. Like I really didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, shoot, I could do some YouTube or like whatever, figure it out. That's kind of how like where my business started, is like, okay, I can actually make money off of art. And so circles back to what my brother and I would do, is he'd get like graphic design clients. And as he was getting more into web development, I would start doing the logos for whatever clients he had. So that's how my design background started picking up. I'm like, okay, this is cool. So I guess you can actually make money off of art. It was interesting. So it all just kind of like fell into place after that.
Okay. And what all do you do when it comes to art? Because I do see some like graphic design type things, digital art. So what all do you do on the art side?
On the art side, I would say I'm more of an illustrator. So I have like original characters. More specifically, I have one specific original character. His name is Royce. He's a robot. So I kind of use that. So I do a little bit of animation, mostly more fine arts. I love oil paints. Like oil paint is like my go-to when I want to paint. And then I use acrylics as well. So I'm more of an illustrator, fine artist when it comes to like artwork, and then I have video production on the other side of that art.
Okay. So not everybody is artistically inclined.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned you kind of fell into the art thing when you were in college.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point did you know you were like good? Was it when people were telling you this isn't even your thing and you're good? So when did you figure out that you had a real knack for these things?
I would say, yeah, it was right around college, probably like my junior year of college is when I really started to see, when my ceramics professor, we were doing a project where I made this sculpture of like a Mickey Mouse character. But what I did is I replaced his nose with like a gas mask, and then I put a rocket on his arm. And so as soon as I did that, and then slowly started building more sculptures in class, like my professor, he was like, "We should apply for." At the time, he got hired at another university. He's like, "You should apply for our master's course and come to this school once you finish." I was like, "For real? All right." So I guess it's I must be decent if this is like someone who's like basically put their whole life around artwork, is like encouraging me to do this. So that's kind of when it clicked for me. Like, okay, I can do something with this. So now what do you want to do? And that's when I just started painting and getting into that. And along the way, I picked up a camera. So as I got more into drawing, I figured out, how can I document what I'm doing, like the process of art, because everyone thinks, oh, you're just born with art. It's like, actually, it takes time. Like it's a learned skill. I think painting, drawing, any of that is all like a learned skill. You don't have to be born with it. But talent, on the other hand, is like, that's somewhat more people are more inclined to do, but you can always learn a skill of being an artist. It's not that hard if you want to put the time into it.
Gotcha. So it doesn't come overnight, because I think I can fall into that that mindset as well, because I don't see myself as a real creative or artistic person, and I see these other people and I'm like, man, you just got to have it. And I do think there's a level of like imagination and creativity that people have to really take things to the next level. But that was a nice thought to hear, that it does take work, because not everything is effortless, no matter how big your imagination or creative inclination is. So I want to talk about your robot character, because I do see this recurring robot on your Instagram page. So please remind me again the name. I believe you did say it already.
Yeah. His name's Royce, Royce.
So Royce, where did Royce come from? How did Royce come to life?
Ooh, that's a good question. So Royce came up when I was in college, around 2016, 2017. That's when like shoe customization and like all these things were like popping up, and fashion was like popping, like Jordans were coming out, like all these unique things. But it got to the point where like everybody was doing the exact same thing. Everybody was like copying each other, or like wearing the same shoes, wearing the same clothes, like skinny jeans, like everyone's style just looked the same. And I was like, this is so robotic. And so Royce kind of came up at a time where it's just like everyone's following the same line, like becoming like carbon copies of each other. What if a robot wanted to be human? Because I loved iRobot. That's one of my favorite movies. And it's like one of the main characters, Sonny, he wants to be human. And it's like, okay, what if I started making a robot and dressing him up like a human? So I did one of my first paintings, and I put him in a beanie and a hoodie, and I love hip hop, like a 90s kid. We just kind of grew up with that. So that's kind of like his signature. So he wears a beanie, he wears a hoodie, and he always has like a boombox with him. So that's just like his thing. And that's how I kind of slowly started and incorporate that. And I started building this whole little world for him during probably like 2017 to like 2019 is when I really was just like, I get off of work, come home, I'm in the basement painting. And it's like, that's how I really got into that.
So let's still talking about Royce here. How has Royce changed throughout the years? Because that's a long time ago, 2016, 17. How has his character developed in a sense?
I might do a little drop here. So I'm actually planning to do a short film, an animated short for him, because it was in a long time in the making where I've always had this idea. That was like right when Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out. I was like, oh, it'd be dope to like make a short film, like a little animated short, like around New York. And I called it The Slice. So it's like Royce waking up, going through his like day in New York City, and he's going to his favorite pizza spot to pick up a slice of pizza. And I just like, all right, cool. Let me just figure out how I can just draw this thing out. And I think I still have the sketchbook. So I ended up actually storyboarding it out for the most part. And I ended up storyboarding it out for like a while ago. But at the time, I think the gap of like my skill set and abilities just didn't match what I wanted to do. So I kind of put that on the back burner, because I didn't know if I could do it to the level that I wanted it to look like. But yeah, so that's his next development, because during the pandemic, I kind of drifted away from that. And like, at that point, just figuring out life and things have changed. And I think that's what's funny about art is it changes with you. So sometimes when you take a step away, or when you're not really doing what you want, or like things don't really fulfill you like that, you just kind of take a step back and kind of separate yourself. So I think that's how Royce has kind of developed, because we kind of grow together. I call him, he's kind of like my alter ego, or like my younger brother kind of thing, because a lot of things with him it reflects how I feel. So eventually I'll find it. But
well, you're a creative person, so I'm sure you got stuff all over the place.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Is like I always have an idea of something. I'm like, I know it's around here somewhere. I just don't know where it's at. But yeah, it's somewhere near. I don't want to take up too much time looking for it, but it's it's kind of something I've been looking for. Actually, I think I still have it on my Instagram. It's on one of my little highlight things. But yeah, so that's the next development of Royce, is like creating an animated short for him. So he's been chilling, he's been relaxing. Gotcha. I haven't really been doing any paintings and stuff or drawings with him for a while, but he's gonna make a comeback. For sure.
That's what's up. Look out for Royce, y'all. Look out for Royce the robot. So let's talk about the cinematic aspect of Groovy Foo Studios. So picking up a camera, picking up a phone, how did you really get into that?
Oh, okay. So a friend of mine, he was moving from Manhattan up in Kansas, and he moved out to San Francisco. So we did a road trip with him and some of his friends from Puerto Rico, and we ended up going to the Golden Gate Bridge. And we're out there, I'm walking around, just kind of looking, taking in the view. Next thing I know, I see this guy. He has like I think at that time he probably had like a 5D like Mark, probably like the first 5D Mark 1 or something like that. And he's like taking pictures, and I'm just watching him. Next thing you know, he like turns around, like, yo, can you take me a picture of me? I'm like, all right, bet. So I'm holding this man's camera, and this thing is like heavy. So I'm like sitting there shaking. I'm like, bro, I don't want to drop this dude's camera because this thing is expensive. So like, once I think I took a picture, of him. And then like I messed with it a little bit. He's like, no, bro, just like fire off some photos. I'm like, all right. Started to do it. I'm like, yo, I think I need a camera. So from there, I picked up my first camera, and then I had the idea of doing, I was like, so that was around September of 26, no, that'd be like 2017, 2018. Right around then. And so I got back from that trip, went on eBay and bought my first camera. It was, so I still have it. So it's a Canon SL2. It had a kit lens on it. I was like, shoot, I don't know the difference. It looked cool to me. So bought that. Then September came around, then October came, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm finna do Inktober, but I'm not just gonna like, oh, I'm just gonna do a little drawing. I was like, nah, I'm like, every day I'm gonna come up with like a skit for like how I draw this thing. And so I started doing it. I did it for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. But that's when I realized like, yo, making a video is hard. like my brain was cooked. like on top of like coming up with something to draw and then figuring out a cool way to like present this drawing. I'm like, bro, I can't do this right now. So I kind of fell off from doing that. But that's kind of where like my aspirations came. I think that's always been my issue. Like my aspirations are always bigger than my skill set, but I think subconsciously I don't understand that until like I'm actually pursuing it, until it gets me into like, oh yeah, nah, this is, you got to actually have like a level of skill to meet what you're trying to do. So yeah, that's kind of what got me into it.
So what was the learning curve like? Because you do photography and videography, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So those are two difficult fields, like in their own respective right. So what was it like learning both of these things? And did you do it concurrently?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I did them both at the same time. 'Cause the funny thing is with photo and video, they all have similar principles. Like you got to know what ISO is. You got to know your shutter speed. You got to understand like how light works. And once you kind of figure out those basics of photo and video, or photo, it kind of rolls into video and vice versa. So then it becomes, how do you start training your own artistic eye? And the best way to start doing that is copying somebody you like. So see somebody, like I live on YouTube. Like I find artists that I like their style. This is something I want to do. So I'll just watch. And then like, okay, I'm going to try and do what they're doing. And then I'll go out and do it and try to figure it out. And that's kind of what's helped me. I've always been a visual learner. Like I can't read stuff in a book and it comprehend for me to understand it. So once I see it, most likely I can figure out how to do it. So that my first few years was rough, like trying to put that together. But I was in 2019, I was in Thailand. No, beginning of 2020, I went over to Thailand. And that's like when I was like, okay, I've been watching like cinematic YouTube for a long time. Like I'm gonna just document my trip. And just at that time, this is how old this is. That's when like IGTV was a thing. So yeah. So that's when that was the thing. So like I made an episode of like whatever I was doing out in Thailand. I was like, I made a little episode and like put it up on Instagram. Like after a while, like friends back home were like, oh, this is so cool. Like keep it going. I'm like, all right, I think we got something going here. So that's kind of where my transition into like photo video really started coming together. And then the pandemic happened. And so I kind of stifled things down, but I was still getting into videos and stuff like that. And then there's this company called Moment. They make photo gear and stuff for mobile filmmakers, and also like camera enthusiasts and all that. But they used to do a film festival, but it was all about making stuff on your phone. So you make a whole short film on your phone. I'm like, cool. I did that and submitted it. I mean, I wasn't expecting to win. It was just cool just to even like put something up and do that. But and then so the crazy thing that kind of got me into like, oh, I might be able to do this was there's a couple out in where they at? There's somewhere in Europe. They're in Poland. They ended up winning one of the categories in the Moment Film Festival in 2020, and then somehow they stumbled upon one of my video. They stumbled upon my submission, and then they commented on it. I was like, "Who the heck is this?" Because I posted on YouTube. I was like, "Who is that?" I started like looking at their stuff. I was like, "Wait a second, this is." And I started just watching all their stuff. They're like, "Yo, this is cool. Like, you should make more of this." I'm like, I was like, oh, okay. I just need that little validation. So I was like, all right, let me just, I was like, okay, cool. So these guys just won this film festival. I must be all right then. but at the same time, that's like the gap of like my ambitions and my skill level were like right here. So like, the way I want my stuff to look versus like what I'm able to do is like wasn't there yet. But I just had that desire to, okay, I know how I want things to look, so I need to just keep figuring out how to make it work like that. So that's when I went all in as far as like figuring out, okay, how do I get better at storytelling? How do I get better at having a cleaner image? How do I figure out what makes something visually interesting to watch? And so that's all I do now is just watch YouTubers that have that intact. But funny thing is, all of them come from like a sports background, all had an interest in sports. And so for me, I think playing sports from a young age helped me become like a versatile, creative person, because most people, when they play sports, they have one sport they play all year. Like they play football, and then off season, they're just training until football season comes around. But I played football, going right into basketball. Then I'll go into either track or baseball after that. So it's like training my mental skill, my creative skill set is to just keep doing things that all aid into what I'm trying to make. So I call myself like a jack of all trades, which isn't probably the smartest thing to do in the creative space, because people think, oh, you're just like a generalist. You're not really skilled in one thing. But the funny thing is, when it comes to artwork and all that, it all plays a hand in helping each other. Because like when it comes to YouTube videos, you got to know how to film a video. But because I know how to storyboard, I know how to do pre-production to figure out, okay, how do I want these shots to look? And then you got to have a thumbnail. Most people, like most big time YouTubers, they have people to make them for them. I'm like, well, I don't have the money to do that. So I got to figure out, how do I make my own thumbnails? And then just slowly start going, all these like drawing and artwork start to blend together, graphic design. So like, okay, now I think I'm finding my lane where I want to speak to those artists who are kind of figuring out that same thing. It's like, well, I have all these interests. I have these different skill sets that kind of work hand in hand. How can I make a business out of this? And it's like, well, one, you got to be okay with knowing that you got to sometimes focus on one thing at a time, but because you have that extra skill set, you can add that into your packages. So I do that with like when I do weddings and things like that. Like, well, I can do photo for you, I can do video, I can do them both for you, and then also like add some little bits in there too. Because I know I can use Photoshop and all that stuff, I add like little bits in there in the videos and stuff like that. So I kind of call it like a reverse wedge, because you know how the point is what kind of gets your foot in the door. So that's either one of my skills, whether graphic design, video production, photography. That's the one I use to get in the door. And then all my other skills are the way like I just break the door open. I just start adding that into packages and like, okay, this is what I can actually do as an artist, not just a photo guy, not just a video guy, not just a graphic designer. It's like, nah, this is all one person. I can do it. But you can, it's one of those things where you can, if you want to go, what they call it, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So I'm starting to realize that in my kind of pathways, like there's going to become a point where I can only go so far by myself that I'll have to start building a team. But right now I'm figuring out, if I want to build a team, what don't I like to do? And then start outsourcing it that way. That was like a long rambling thing about trying to answer your question. My bad.
No, it's all good. Because this is good stuff. This is all good stuff. I do want to talk about you monetizing your talents and turning your craft into a business. But I have one question before that, because
for sure, bro. What you got?
You said something that you said something that made me think of patience, because when you are doing everything by yourself, and as someone who does most of my stuff by myself, my wife will chip in here and there, but I don't like making thumbnails. I hate making reels. I actually don't even like editing. This is the only part that I like. So all of these things coming together and posting on different platforms takes a lot of patience to have things to kind of refine everything to your liking. So how much patience is involved in being a content creator like yourself?
Oh man. So I'd say for me to get my first like legit paid gig, that just happened last year. It probably took me from the time I picked up a camera, I started making content, probably let me say like 2016 to now. Was that 7 years? So it's one of those things where you're building a foundation that you don't even know you're building, but eventually one day someone's going to see what you're doing and be like, yo, I like what you do. Can you do this for me? I'm like, all right, bet. Like, you got to have that confidence in yourself. Like, yeah, I can do this for somebody else, and I deserve to. I worked hard enough to be paid for it. I think that's the hardest part for someone who is kind of been grinding on their own, realizing like someone is willing to pay you for what you do. You just have to have the confidence to say yes. So that's what's happened for me. The last 2 years, I started working with different creators, doing video editing, and then also helping out with like some of the graphics work. It's just having that confidence to say yes. I mean, you got to fake it till you make it. So just having that level, like, you know what, I'm gonna jump and we'll see what happens. So patience as a content creator is you can't skip steps. So what you're doing now, like editing your own videos, making your own thumbnails, and like just kind of doing the grunt work, because you're building that foundation for your company or for what you want to do. And then eventually someone's going to pay you, and it's like, okay, cool. Now you get your next pay gig. And then now you'll start to be able to afford to pay someone else to do the things you don't like to do. And honestly, it's just doing stuff for free helps a lot, because it may not, I think that's one thing I learned early on is like, don't bite the hands that's feeding you. I kind of did that with my first like YouTuber I was working with. It kind of gave me my first shot at being an editor. So I edited their videos. And then once I realized like my skill level improved like pretty quickly, I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna raise my rates. That's like, but you don't want to raise your rates on the person who gave you your first shot, because then it becomes like more of a problem where it's like, okay, we've been working at this rate for so long, like why now? And then it's like the work kind of slowed down. So something that was a tough lesson I learned, was just don't bite the hands that are giving you your first shot, but use that experience to get your next shot. So that kind of helped me early on, but now it's something like I'm kind of grateful for, because I got my reps in doing that. So you can't skip the process. I've tried it so hard. Like, just for anyone who's ever started like a video production business, everyone says, oh, I started with weddings. I was like, nah, I ain't finna be the person to do weddings. And then my homeboy hit me up earlier this year and was like, yo, you do video, right? I was like, yeah. Can you shoot my wedding? I'm like, dang. I wasn't trying to, but I mean, this is my boy, so like I'll do it. And then from that, I just picked up 2 more weddings. I'm like, oh, dang, I guess this is just part of the process of like building that video production aspect of it. You just got to go through weddings, because, bro, there's crazy money in weddings. It's insane how much people pay for weddings. It's crazy.
Speaking of which, I interviewed somebody. Now he was in your video. You got to look at his YouTube. You know, follow Groovy Food Studios on Instagram rather, and on YouTube. But Jaden down in Atlanta. So the Trill Dawn on Instagram, and he was talking about weddings as well. How much effort they require, but how lucrative it could be when you do weddings. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in. So your first paid gig was when?
So my first paid gig was when I was in college. So it was something crazy. So my first paid gig, I was someone wanted like a tree painting on a canvas, because they wanted to do like one of those like thumbprint, like baby reveal things. So I was like, man, I could do that. Cool. So did that one for like $20-$30. And then from there, I started doing graphic works with my brother. And so from that, I was getting like $100, $150. And then from there, I just kept doing more graphics works. And then my first paid video gig, I did photos. I did shot photos for a family in my hall. So that was in 2018. I was after I picked up my first camera. And my first like video editing job was like during pandemic. A family member was starting their YouTube channel, and they're like, all right, cool. I'll pay you $1,500 to edit my videos. I'm like, $1,500? What? A month? For real? That's like more than I was working. I was like, shoot, I had to work like 30, 40 hours at the restaurant to get something like that. It's like, shoot, I'm on it. But then I didn't realize like how much work went into video editing because we were making, at that time, we were posting 3 videos a week. They were all at least like 10-minute videos. I didn't know what I got myself into because like I cut my own videos before, but like doing it for somebody else, I'm like, yo, this is insane. So yeah, that was my first gig.
Yeah.
That was in 2020. It was like, no, 2021. But that was cool. I was like, cool, I'm doing this thing, working from home, doing video editing. Like, this is tight. But also the work that went into it was crazy. That was a learning experience because I crunched the numbers one time and I was like, at that time we made like 150 videos in my first year. I'm like, that's not, that doesn't make any sense to be able to do that. But man, I learned a lot, but there's also, I paid for it too. That was tough for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think talking to you as I'm listening to you speak kind of gives me validation because as I look at you as like a big dog, you know, like when I see your videos and everything.
Yeah.
And you expressing how much work you put in and everything. Like I think to myself, like, man, I wish I need to be pumping out more videos. But hearing you say like, this is work, like this is real work. Like even you speaking on the reels, I'm like, dog, it's a 1 minute video. Why is this taking so long? But, and although your reels are way more advanced than mine, I'm just going to throw that out there. Just hearing you say that, like, this is real work, like kind of gives me a little bit of, not validation, but a little bit of comfort to know that, okay, I'm not just, what's the politically correct term? I'm not just slow in the brain when I'm taking forever to make a video. So, very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure, bro. I got to say before we go on real quick, before we go out. Yeah, bro. I say like your path that you're taking, like as far as podcasting, I would say that's one of the harder mediums to edit for, because you'd kind of recall like a 45-minute conversation and cut that down into points. You're like, dang, how do you even go through all that? That's a lot of, because I do some editing for a podcast. And it's like, bro, to even just comb through all that information, all that content, and just to cut it down to like hot points that get people more to watch your, bro, that is hard. I ain't feel a lot of you. That is real hard. But I think what's dope is like, there's so many tools out right now, like AI that helps kind of speed up that process and kind of does it for you. So honestly, if you're curious about it, I would try that out for sure, because that would easily speed up the time that you're cutting down these episodes, bro. Because yeah, it's video editing for one thing is already hard, but like to comb through like hours of content to put out, man, it'll stress you out. It'll stress you out for sure.
Yeah. This platform that we're using right now does AI. So like nowadays when I interview people on here, it'll just cut up it'll make reels and then have captions. You can edit the captions. Like when I say Cool Hand Podcast, it'll spell it COOL when I spell it with a Q. But but this is one of the reasons why I use this platform, smart, because it saves me some time on the reels. But yeah, so business. Where are you at this point, since you began, capitalizing off of what you do? What all do you do business wise? What are what do you do?
Yeah, for sure. So that's kind of I'm kind of restructuring my business right now and I'm transferring from an LLC to an S Corp, because an S Corp allows you to have multiple businesses under it. And I realized, like, for me to be able to be more lucrative in this industry, I need to separate my services, and I can pitch them all collectively. But so what I'm planning to do now is Groovy Studio is going to be like my my S Corp, because a studio is like a creative playground basically. And then underneath it, I'm branching out. I want to do a clothing line. I want to have my graphic design business, and also have my video production side of things. And I'm gonna all run those 3 underneath. Groovy Food Studios, because if I just put it into Groovy Food Productions, everybody's instantly going to think, okay, just videos, but that's not all that I do. So that's kind of where I've been kind of working on restructuring. I'm probably mostly going to lean into that in 2024, but I do more so I do graphic design, brand kits, and I also offer video production services. So filming, editing, trying to get my foot into doing behind the scenes content, and working in that avenue too. So that's a shorthand of what I do, and also trying to get back into clothing, because I've been working on a few t-shirt designs and like having a few products, but like everything takes time. So having that brain space to work on that is what I'm planning to do in 2024. So, but yeah, that's kind of the structure of my business: is video production, graphic design, branding, and merch. So not only just not merch, but clothing, in a sense where I can design it myself and produce my own, and then also do that service for other people as well.
Got it. I like it. I like it. So you said something that was very interesting too. I guess there was an assumption that you were just doing your thing on some, you give me some bread, I'll do this. But you actually, you formed an LLC. At what point did you form that?
So probably like probably like a month or two into editing for a family member for YouTube, is what she said. It was like, it's easier. Well, it's not easier, but it saves on taxes if you have your own LLC versus being paid as like a contractor or like a proprietor, because it's like taxes take a big chunk out of that. So she like kind of pushed like, yo, if I'm gonna pay you, like you should probably get yourself incorporated. I'm like, all right, so I'll do that. So probably 2021 is when I like had my first like legal business, and it's like got the tax forms, I got a couple of cards that has my business name on it, and like I still feel like pulling that thing out, like having it. So I was like, yo, this is crazy. But yeah, so it was in 2021 was when I started my first like official business. I got an EIN number and all that.
All right. All right. So this is interesting as well, because I've been trying to find ways to make the Cool Hand podcast like a business, So I need you to educate me real quick.
I got you, bro.
So when I was looking into, thank you. When I was looking into LLCs and things like that, I'm just watching YouTube videos pretty much. It was talking about having like a designated agent. And I'm like, I ain't hiring no attorney to be my agent. So did you go that route, or are you your own agent?
Technically I did, because I went through a family member who's like, she's like an attorney or something like that. And she did like all my paperwork to handle that. And that was before I found out like there's other services that can do that for you for like a lot cheaper, like and quicker. Not to say it wasn't really that expensive for me to do it anyway, but it's just like, as far as like someone who's going at it on your own, there's a few services like I've been seeing like Taylor Brand. They help you like set up your LLCs and stuff like that. So I was looking at them to do that. So I would honestly look at one of those services, because they'll do all the filing for you, and they'll get you your EIN number, all your information, your title name, set up, all that. So I definitely look into Taylor Brand as a source to kind of start an LLC. And that's honestly, once you get that started and then get you a bank account, and just put like maybe like $2,500, whatever, just in there. So then you can start funneling. Once you start funneling your business expenses through there, I would then use this company called Keeper Tax. That's basically like my accountant. So what you do is, once you get all your bank accounts linked up to this account, you're assigned an accountant, and they just track all your spending, and then they'll tell you, okay, this is a write-off, this is a write-off, this is a write-off, this is a write-off. And then kind of categorize it that way. So basically you're taking all your day-to-day spending that contributes to your business, and now you're getting tax benefits off of it. So because I work and live on my own, like even when I fill up my car for gas, or when I purchase like things for subscriptions I use that for my work and things like that, all of that becomes tax write-offs. So that's saving you money come tax time. It doesn't really work like as you're spending the money, but like later on you'll see the benefits of it. So that's probably my two things that have been helping me a lot. Is I'll spend something, go to a restaurant, get some food. My accountant will the little accountant through Keeper Tax were like, okay, you made this expense. We'll knock this down because it goes under this category. I'm like, oh, bet. It was just like, so there's also like, there's some legal things behind that you want to be careful about. Cause like doing like business meals and stuff like that, that people kind of take that overboard, but you always want to make sure like you're still doing everything like by the book, because of it. You don't want the government coming for you. But that's probably the two things that helped me as a solo creator right now, is just having Keeper Tax and then probably getting somebody to help with like file your paperwork to get your LLC.
Gotcha. You're giving me game, man, because I'll tell you for today, I'm going to like a little concert to film, just like this band that I'm going to interview, but they're debuting a track today at this concert. And I am a hermit. I am a recluse. The only time I go out is for podcast stuff, honestly. And it's like, I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for the podcast. Now, while I'm out, I'm probably going to get some water, you know, maybe get a little something to eat. And it's like, if it wasn't for me doing this little podcast thing, I would not be. Yeah. So I'm thinking somebody recommended it. It's like, okay, some of these things can be written off. And like, you know, I wouldn't go overboard, and, you know, I don't spend a bunch of money on food anyway, but it's like, it would be nice to get some of these things kind of taken off my plate come February every year. So this is good stuff. I'm learning a lot today,
yeah, bro. Honestly, that's all. Like, that's all I do is like, I'm just listening, like while I'm working or something. I'll just throw in like a podcast. Like because I watch all my stuff on YouTube, so I'll just throw in a podcast, or like I see something on Instagram, and I just listen, because that's something me and my brother do all the time. We just like talk about, like, we'll share like reels about business stuff, and we'll hear these little tips and tricks that kind of helps you kind of sustain your business, or turn your passion or your side hustle into like a main hustle. And so learning these things, like your day-to-day life and things that you do that contribute to your business, that all is like a tax benefit. Because I mean, if the government's going to give you breaks on it or free money for stuff you do on the regular, it's like, shoot, why not? They take your money anyway, so you might as well get some of that back. So yeah, bro, I'm just passing game on that I've learned over my time. And that's honestly the thing is there's so much. And when it comes to like how to monetize your stuff, I always just look at the services you're already using. That was kind of one of my first like brand deals I got. I use air quotes because it was kind of like a case study, but I use a service called Epidemic Sound for music, and they have like this whole community aspect of it, to where if you recommend people to the platform, they get a free trial of like 30 days to use their copyright free music. And then if they start paying, if they transfer over to paid subscriptions, you get a kickback on it. And then I think once you get people who get like 12 paying accounts, then they start like they start paying you back. So Epidemic will start paying you, get you invited to different events and stuff like that. So that's where I got my first brand deal. I did a case study for them. I got the first one, then it paid me like $150 or something like that. And then the second one I did paid me like another like 2 or 3. So all of that came by just being a part of looking into the services I already use that offer like some kickback on stuff like that. So that's technically how I got my first brand deal, was just utilizing the community service that they got. So I've been seeing a lot of people, like there's a podcast I watch called the Editing Podcast. But it's like Hayden Hillier Smith and another guy. They use Riverside, but every time they do their podcast, they do an ad read for Riverside as to why and things like that. So like basically use that because you're already using Riverside as it is. So if you can kind of incorporate that into your podcast, I mean, most people who are just listening, they're going to be mad like, oh, you're doing an ad read. But like most creators, if you're going to do an ad read for a service you're using, they get it because you got to pay the bills. So it's like, hey, yeah, bro, do what you got to do. So I would definitely, if you're looking probably in 2024, look into what opportunities Riverside has as far as like, because you host your podcast through here. It's like, shoot, see if they get you some kickback for using their service. Because most creative brands are all about that. They're all about catering to their creators that use their platform, because they wouldn't exist without their creators.
Right. I like it. Trust me. If you are a watcher of the Cool Hand podcast, when you see that first ad pop up in the middle of a YouTube video,
hey,
don't get mad. I'm trying to get paid. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm trying to get paid, y'all. So don't, and honestly, I don't like ads like when I'm watching my YouTube videos, but it is what it is. I got to get my bread up, y'all. So, let's get back to you. I want to ask you a question that I
Sure.
usually ask people, which is pros and cons. Now, you do a lot of things, so I'm just going to put it in a general sense. What are, some of the highs and lows, pros and cons, ups and downs to being a content creator?
I'm gonna start with the negative first, just to get it out the way. The hard part is it's a grind, bro. It's you see people who are doing the exact same thing you're doing, but when you look at the numbers, they're pulling in like 10K, 100K views, and you're like, dang, I just got 50 views on this post, or I just got like barely scraped 100 views on this post. It's like, bruh, why am I even doing this? But that's hard. The imposter syndrome is real. Like when you're starting it, bro, it's one of those things. Like I feel like a fool. My stuff isn't good. Like I don't even know why I'm doing this. It's you, man. You get your first negative comment. Someone's like, "What are you doing? Like this isn't even good." You're like fighting through that. It's like, man, everything negative you can imagine is going to happen when you first start content creating. But I would say, to kind of spin it on a positive note, now this year, like I've probably like fully leaned into being a content creator. And I got invited to a couple events, or I got invited to an event, and then I signed up to go to a couple of different creator events. Went to a private screening by one of my favorite filmmakers that's on YouTube. When it just worked out that he happened to be in Portland, he did a showing there, so I met him because my brother lives out in Portland. So we went to that, and then since I was overseas, there was another event happening in London, and it was like on my way back home from Turkey. So I was like, yo, I'm gonna go to this, pulled up to that, met people. So it's just being able to identify yourself as a content creator, help you get your foot in the door, and then you got to have something to say. I think that's the hardest thing. That'll be another kind of somewhat negative thing, is like, no one's going to believe you until you believe it yourself that you are a content creator. Like you're an artist, like whatever your passion, your medium is, like you have to believe it yourself. Cause then that's how people will stick around for you. Cause it's not anybody these days can pick up a camera and like cut a video together real quick. Like because of TikTok, everything is attainable. And because of like apps like CapCut, like editing is now so much more manageable because they give you all these tutorials, all these things that you're able to do with it. And they kind of tell you how to do it. So if you're willing to learn, figure out what's working, start doing it, and then try to incorporate what you like to do. So finding your own voice, finding your own identity is hard in the beginning, and people get wrapped up in that. But just the best part is just start making stuff. And I think what's come out of this whole Project 30 challenges, there's been so many, like, I wouldn't say I got a ton of remarks from it, but there's been at least 10 or so DMs or messages I've got from people that were like, yo, this is so encouraging. I've been feeling the same way. Like, I want to do this now, or like, I want to try it, or like, how do you do this? I'm like, bro, I'm just now like legit starting this. Like, but for people to say, like, for you to say, like, you feel like I'm a big dog, like, bro, I just barely gotten it. Like, I'm barely getting into this, but it's just like one of those things, like, I try to encourage people. Like, that's what I plan to do within this next year, is really documenting the process of growing a creative business for yourself, because it's hard, but to see that it is possible to do, I think that's going to be one of the most important things for a lot of people, because one, you just got to get started. And that's kind of what happened with how the whole Project 30 happened. I was giving advice as if I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to encourage everybody. Yeah, y'all need to do this. You could do this. And then you could be like, you could be a top dog. But honestly, I was just talking to myself. In all honesty, I was like, bro, get started, have a plan. You know how bad you are if you don't have a plan, because this isn't going to work out. Like, do this, like slowly try to encourage myself to like, okay, I've learned these skills. Share them with people, because someone's going to be in the shoes I was in when I was in 2016. Someone's going to be watching a video that I made, like, oh, I want to do this. So like, tell everybody like what encouraged you to keep going, what helped me to like have the courage to start posting, what helped me to kind of to reach out and like do these things. Like as soon as I started identifying myself as a content creator, that's when I saw like my attitude changed. the way I approached things changed, and the way how people saw me changed. I was like, okay, this is what I want. This is the kind of lifestyle I want to build, is having that freedom to be able to make what I want and it to impact people, but also be able to monetize it. So I saw that I can impact people. Now I'm trying to monetize it in a way that it's not just like sleazy, where like, okay, I'm going to do a brand read for some random product company that I don't even use, but because they're going to pay me a bag, like, no, I'm not trying to do that, but I just want to use services or get brand deals from services I actually use, products I actually use, and show like, okay, this is what I use to do this, to do X. And it's like, it's all possible. Honestly, I'll give a little teaser here. I'm already planning on doing a couple of reels where like highlighting this whole Project 30 challenge. I shot all of that on my phone. Everything was shot on my phone, and then I just had a phone, a tripod, and wireless mics. Most people would think, "Oh, bro, what kind of like?" I think someone asked me that too. It's like, "What kind of camera did you use?" I was like, "Dog, my iPhone, it shoots in 4K. Slap that on a tripod. Just figure out your framing and stuff like that." You can't tell the difference between you can't tell the difference because like certain technical things, but on social media it all looks the same. So use your phone and just make content, and eventually you'll make enough money to like buy the more high end stuff. Because the other aspect about being a content creator, you got to look the part. And sometimes some people do get paid for, I just saw this reel the other day. Some dude said like he knows a guy who gets paid like $10K just for filming interviews on his phone. I'm like, what? How do you even convince somebody to pay for that? But it's the same thing. You just got to have the confidence in yourself to like, okay, I'm a content creator. I do this. I could do this for you. And let me show you. And then we can talk money. So I think that's the biggest thing. Every time I keep applying for like editing jobs, everybody's like, okay, cool. I'm glad you reached out. Let me see your work. Let me see your work. Let me see your work. So you got to have work to show if you want to like really make content a thing and start approaching brands. Like, so I think for you, bro, if you're when you're trying to start monetizing this upcoming year, you already have like almost a year's worth of content already. It's like, yeah, you're an established podcast platform. So now you're like, all right, cool. Can we talk money? Like, you got a loyal customer here. Like, what's up? We can do that. So I think that's the one thing I've learned. That's probably the best aspect about being a content creator is like, one, your confidence goes through the roof, because when everything clicks for you, it just feels like, okay, now you're no longer a starving artist. Like that stigma is slowly fading away where, oh, you can't have a sustainable career. Because shoot, there's no such thing as a sustainable career these days, because like people getting laid off left and right. But content creation and creativity, that's really what's thriving and building the world right now, or like how people are eating. So it's like, if you can get in on it, you find your pathway. I don't want to say niche, because that's like, I feel like it's too pigeonholed, but that's because like I'm an anti-nicher, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, bro. I mean, being in content creation, it allows you to have conversations, kind of like what we're having right now, where you just connect with people that get it. Like everyone is going through that same struggle, or like, bro, I'm just starting. I don't know what to do. Like, this is taking me forever to do. Like, yeah, fam. Like, trust me, it's hard, but it's work, and eventually it's gonna pay off. So we all gotta pay our dues before it pays off. And for some people, sometimes it's the first video that pops off, and bam, they got their whole things squared away. But for a lot of people, a lot of us, it's just like we gotta take our pennies, take our wins when we can, and just keep building on it, and don't want to get caught in that one lane. It's just, as soon as we get our first paid gig, don't get caught in that lane. Like, okay, this is what I do now. It's like, nah, remember what you want to do is to kind of be a content creator, do your own thing. So keep striving to do your own thing, and just like, however you got to pay your way, whoever's going to pay you to do your own thing. That's where it's at for sure. That's why I love that's why I love content creation, is just like being able to do my own thing is nice.
I'm motivated. I don't know about whoever's watching. I'm gonna push this episode hard because I'm motivated. If anybody's watching, please follow Groovy Foo Studios on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. I gotta follow you on TikTok. I rarely open the app. I hate that app.
Bro,
It's just too much.
I only do it just to post stuff because I know there's a whole community on TikTok, and I think I might focus on that like in 2024 or something like that. But TikTok is too addicting to where like I'll doom scroll. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Start going through a little tab. Yeah, bro, it's addictive. So I jump on because there's the algorithm is funny on TikTok where it's like you got to be on the app active first before you post, before it starts like pushing your stuff out to people. So what I do is I jump on, I go through a couple, like look at a couple TikToks or whatever, like them, then I'll post my thing, let that load, and then I'll go through like some more TikToks, let it do its thing, and then I'll hop off the app because I will be on there all night if I don't. So that's kind of how I mess with TikTok. But yeah, TikTok I think it's a great platform for people to get started and test things out. But as far as like a business aspect of it, there's from some of the creators I've listened to, like it's not good for scale because you don't really get to build community on there because it's just such a quick like fast food kind of platform. So it's hard to I mean, people are doing it, they're living off of TikTok, but it's hard to make something sustainable. So my goal actually is kind of lean more into YouTube this upcoming year because that's really where it's all at. So yeah. Yeah, bro.
Any last comments, concerns, shout outs, anything as we wrap this up? Anything that I missed?
Oh, okay. So for anybody, I'm be the motivational speaker right now. So I really one thing I like about I've been listening to is like someone's like they create for their like 16, 17-year-old self. And so I would say for me, for anybody who's out there like curious about creating content, is like make it for someone or even for yourself 5 years from now, or like when you were like 10, 15, someone you look up to. So make stuff for someone you want to help encourage them to do it. And eventually you'll establish your why, like why are you making content, and then lean into that because someone is looking for stuff you want to make. Someone is looking to hear your voice. They just don't know they're waiting. They're looking for it. You just got to put it out there. And I just want to shout out all the creators out there, like Q. I want to talk to Peas. I was mad I couldn't make it to the pop up for Cassier this year. I was so salty about that. Who else is out there? Trill Don, like all my homies that are just out there that are creating right now, because that's something that's new. It's like there's not really too many people creating content that we know closely. Like for all, obviously like life choices and stuff like that, we all connect in that aspect. But for everyone else who it's like, this is a possibility to able to give you the freedom to live the life we all know we want to live. So you can do it. You just gotta lean into it and just know that it is possible. So all the homies I've been seeing doing that. Who's the cat from Philly that does fashion? He does like, he's a model. Sonny, yes, yeah. So I found him through your podcast. I watched your episode with Peas, and then I saw a clip from Sonny pop up. I was like, yo, these cats is out here doing it. So it's like anybody's who out there is like, yo, y'all gave me so much encouragement. I was like, oh, so you can actually like do this and live the life we live in. So y'all gave me some inspiration, and like my shout out to my big brother. His name's John. He's always been a big inspiration to me. Like even now, we always talking about stuff like projects we working on. He's my test dummy. Like I started I'm working on this series now, like kind of interviewing creators, in a sense where like kind of talking about their story of like how they got into where the business that they're in, and how they're growing it. What was the process? Because for my brother, I didn't know it took him 15 years to get to where he's at right now. And I was like, oh snap, that's a story. But instead of just sitting down talking to him about it, every time we're together, we go out and do something, like, and we kind of go out because he's in Portland now. We'll go out into his city, like we're just walking around. So I'm recording him talk about what's been inspiring to him, what's his story about, and kind of I want to build a documentary series around artists who come from unconventional backgrounds and share that with people. That's like, it is somewhat of like a podcast interview kind of thing, but also combining like more of like the vloggy day in the life kind of thing. I want to put that in like a documentary series. So if anybody's down for that, let me know. Hit me up. Groovy Food Studios, wherever you at. Like, I'm down. We can collab because I love conversations with creators, man. Because it's such a unique lifestyle choice to want to create things, put your perspectives, your ideas on the internet, and allow people to either view it, criticize it, and you're just like, yo, this is what I do. Like it or love it, or like it or hate it, whatever it is, I'm still gonna do it. And just put it out there. So definitely subscribe to the Cool Hand Podcast wherever you at, because it's definitely big things is coming. So everybody, hey, much love. Love all around for sure.
Love all around. Benji, aka Groovy Foo. You can follow him on Instagram. You can follow him on TikTok. You can follow him on YouTube. Stay tuned for everything that he's got going on, because he mentioned a lot. So I'm looking forward to what you're going to be coming out with in the future. And so is everybody who's watching. This is the Cool Hand Podcast. Cool Hand Podcast, something you got to deal with. Easy.